Hi everyone, you're here with Liam, and welcome to Story Time. Today, we're going to be reading Grandmother Lucy and Her Hats by Joyce Wood, with pictures by Frank Francis. Grandmother Lucy and Her Hats. Grandmother Lucy was a very, very old grandmother, and she lived in a house with red roses. The sun shone on her red roses in the mornings. When I went to see her, I knocked at her door. The door was thick and squeaked, and she always said, "We must oil the hinges." We never did, so it squeaked, and she smiled, and I went in. My grandmother had a cat, a giant cat made of white fluff. He was like a big dandelion clock, and he walked slowly with his tail waving. His name was Tom, and where grandmother went, Tom went too. I thought he should have been Snowball. I thought he should have been called Snowball or something, but grandmother said, "His name is Tom." Tom lived in the kitchen with his yellow saucer and his cushion, which was yellow too. He slept on the windowsill with the geraniums. Grandmother Lucy grew geraniums because they were red. I liked their red flowers, but I didn't like their smell. Tom did. He nudged them with his nose, and tiptoed round them with his careful feet, and smiled at them with his shining eyes. His eyes were yellow like the sun, and his saucer and his cushion. He lay on the windowsill and watched the dancing dust and me. Grandmother Lucy said we could go up to the attic. The attic was as high as the sky at the top of the house. I liked the attic when we all went together, my grandmother, Tom, and me. The stairs were so many that they couldn't be counted, and the door was always locked. My grandmother had the key. She rattled it and unlocked the door, and we went in through all the cobwebs that were always in the way. I always held my grandmother's hand in the attic, and Tom pretended to be a tiger. The attic was full, so that there was hardly room for our feet. They had to be fitted in the spaces like the last pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. It was easier for Tom. There was a tall, straight clock called a grandfather. He wasn't very friendly at all, and if we went near him, he talked and whirred and banged, and I always thought he wanted to get out. I knew my grandmother didn't want grandfather to come out, because she left him in the tall, straight clock, with cobwebs to tickle his scowling face. The trunk in the corner was full of secrets, and each time I put my hand in, something different and surprising came out. Sometimes a violin, or silk that didn't want to leave my fingers, or a little pointed boot with a row of buttons, or a brown photograph. There was a box full of buttons on the shelf, lovely slippery buttons for counting and losing and finding again. All the buttons in the world were in that little box. Big round gold ones like soldiers have, shiny red ones, soft green ones, and round black ones for eyes, blue ones and little ones and big ones. They made a lovely shivery button noise when I shook them. I didn't like all the cases in the attic because of going away. I didn't like people going away, and there were so many cases, and a sword on the wall, with some walking sticks and an umbrella for the sunshine. There were books and toppling towers all round, and Tom stood on a tower to look through the slanting window at the birds flying high in our sky. And there was a long cupboard with 2 mirrors inside it, and shelves for Grandmother Lucy's hats to live on, and piles of round boxes for the special hats. Grandmother Lucy liked hats. Grandmother sat on a little stool with grey roses on it, and put on her hats, one by one. There was a purple one with violets on it. That was my grandmother's favorite. She said, "I like my violet hat. I must wear it again." But she never did. I never saw her wearing it. One was made of straw, crinkly, knobbly straw, and it was a sailor hat. Grandmother Lucy said, "This is a straw boater." I thought that sailors and boats must look very funny wearing hats like that. It had 2 black ribbons that dangled over the edge. I didn't like them, but Grandmother Lucy liked them. I liked the one with net on. It was strange when she pulled the net over her eyes, because then her eyes looked like 2 shiny fishes caught in the net, and the net had little brown spots in it to make shadows on Grandmother's face. The next hat to have an earring was a pink one, like a great big rose. It had petals too, and Grandmother Lucy wore it in the winter. She said, "This hat is to remind me of the summer," so she wore it in the winter. I didn't like the one that was made of feathers, and I didn't like the fur one either. The feathers were green and blue, and the fur was brown. I thought of little green and blue birds and little brown rabbits, and I was sorry that they were turned into hats, even for Grandmother Lucy. Grandmother put on her silk hat, and I knew she wanted me to like this one. This hat was shiny and full of colors like a rainbow, and it was all folded. It was beautiful like my grandmother and soft like my grandmother. It made her eyes sparkle. Grandmother Lucy said, "This is a lovely hat." I thought it was. Tom knew when it was time to go. He jumped down and waited by the door. Grandmother said, "Be patient, Tom," while she put her hats away. She gave me a fan, a little purple fan, with a bird on one side and a hole to look through, and 3 green shiny beads for the other hand. I went first with my fan and my beads, so that Grandmother Lucy could lock the door, and so that I could run down the stairs away from Grandfather Clock. I didn't like to think about him much. Grandmother Lucy made tea in her teapot with roses on it, and Tom had his milk in his yellow saucer. He didn't like tea, not even to please Grandmother. We had little cakes, and Grandmother always said they were my favorites. I didn't say they were my favorites, but I liked them just the same. Then my grandmother walked to the gate to watch me walking down the lane, with my little purple fan, my 3 green beads, and cobwebs in my hair. Tom took no notice. So this book was originally published in 1968. This was published in 1974. Great little book, and this is my childhood copy. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the book. I'll be back tomorrow. Thank you. Bye.